have to speak up, I think. I'll have to speak up. Hello, everyone. I don't know how well you can hear me, actually. I'm just going to listen to myself. I've just started Audacity as the backup. Oh, I see what's the problem. Hang on a sec. Hang on. I've got sorry, guys, a little bit of a technical problem here. Just a little tech problem here. Just a sec. I'm just I'm using Audacity as a backup. I just need to know where the microphone. Audacity's picking up the webcam mic, and I'm talking to you on this mic, which is much better quality. Where is it? Okay, how do I do this? Audio device info. Right. Can I change it? Edit. Select, move cursor, play region preferences, view, transport track. Sorry, guys, I'll be with you in a moment. If this doesn't work, I'll just leave it and make do. All right. Generate. Effect. Analyze. Help. No, I'm not going to mess around. I'll just restart Audacity and see if that helps. Any changes? No, I don't want to change any changes. I'm just going to restart Audacity. I run Audacity as a backup just in case the bloody video doesn't process. All right. Okay, it's recording now. Oh, right. I think it may. Yeah, it seems to be recording. I can tell by the visuals. It's recording now from the headset, which is what I want. I want it recording from this mic. So welcome everyone. Welcome. I've got 21 people watching. I'm just going to share this as usual. So let's do a big share now. So on Twitter, let's share it on Twitter. Yeah, up yours, Jack Dorsey. And now on Facecloth. What I'll do is if it really, do you remember the trouble I had with the processing and things like that for the recording? Because I like to download the recording, of course, and upload them to BitChute and Library and all my alternative platforms, because you can't put all your eggs in the YouTube basket these days. And last it took like about 3 days to process. So what I'm doing instead, just to be on the safe side, I'm recording the audio on Audacity, and if it messes about, what I'll do is I'll simply put on some illustrations, and I'll add the audio, and I'll just make that the recording for the other platforms. But anyway, hello, sorry for that, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone. Welcome Crafty Nihilist, both of you. David Keith. We also have Onslow. Hello Onslow, and DJ B2 and Mary. And Sonara's Ash Tree. I know who you are, Sonara. Welcome, thank you. Jock of the Ages. Max Organ, hello. And we also have, gone back, flick down to the bottom again. Thanks, Sonara. BitChute. Nelly on the Land. Hello, Nelly. You're a new one. David Gregg. Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Lisa Cry Freedom. David. Daniel DePussy says face. Yeah, I agree, Daniel. Yes, I agree. Good evening, all of you. Hello, Diego Rivera. For some reason, Diego Rivera, Israel Diego Rivera 2, Genius 2, always has their, I always have to approve everything they write. I don't know why that is. But hello, David Schultz. Greetings all the way from Maine. And Crystal Energy, hello. Oh, Crystal Cat. Hi, Crystal Cat. A friend of mine from Telegram is here. Johnny Nigma. Hello, Boyle. How are you? And Richard Kinzitz says, have you noticed the billboards for the Great Reset have a pause graphic or Twin Towers? I haven't. I've seen the World Economic Forum website about that. Yeah. And Lisa says bloody weird stuff going on. Yes. Max Organ is Ben wearing his disclosure Speedos tonight. Well, I'm not going to show you. Hello, Tina. How are you? And Paul Armstrong, who is gloating about the football yesterday. Yes. I'm glad I missed it, Paul. I'm glad I missed it. So, guys, I'm just going to, before we begin, I'm just going to do what I normally, because I always forget this, don't I? I forget it too often. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through your comments you posted on the show notice. So, where am I? Right. So thanks for all your comments on the show notice, everyone. Charles Unleashed said, "I haven't decided who I'm making president yet." Oh, I bet you haven't, Charles. Yeah. Nelly on the land. Hi, I look forward to it. I'm in the caravan on the farm at the moment, and I need a distraction from all these storms. Cheers. All right, Nelly. Hope the storms don't last too long. David Schultz says, a blast from the past of a quote about all elections, even the upcoming US presidential election, as follows. It's not the people who vote that count. It's the people who count the votes. None other than Joseph Stalin. You know, that could be the motto for this particular live stream. Really could. And here's another one. And my favorite quote about voting is as follows. If voting changed anything, they'd make it illegal. And that's by Emma Goldman. That's, well, you know, up till now, up until 2016, yes. Although, of course, now voting is changing things. They are making it illegal. So I'll cover that in great detail. Crafty Nice says, we'll be there. That's great, Crafty. Crafty's cooking, but I hope you enjoy your burgers. Jock of Ages says, what is this detritus? Meaning the illustration I used for the notice. Well, the answer is, because you see a lot of envelopes just dumped on the floor. The answer is votes. That's what it is. Steve071 will be at work, so that's really a great shame. Diego Rivera says, choose your side. I have, Diego Rivera. Patrick Patel says, I can't wait. So hi, Patrick. Hope to see you in chat. Firechild UK 1 has sent me a video of an American postman talking about, it's kind of like an election advisory thing, and he's talking about the need to get your postal votes in early and other things to do with postal voting. I'll be talking a lot about the postal ballots and the postman and things like that in a minute. And Lime Spec says vote Biden. Oh yeah, Lime Specs. Yeah, I'm sure we're all going to do that. So guys, let's going to say hello to anyone else who's joining us at the moment, who's not yet. I've said hello to, because I want to say hello to everyone who joins. We have Daniel DePercy is voted for Kanye. Oh yeah, Kanye. He's actually only standing in a couple of states. He could only get his nomination in on time. I think that was a trick, actually. That was a trick, actually, to get Biden supporters to vote for him. This whole thing about him falling out with Trump is not true. It was all. I think it was all arranged. But welcome all of you. Max Organ has found a frog in his toilet. Oh, that's very odd indeed. Well, as long as it wasn't a poison one that bites, that's the only thing. Bitshoe says the supreme function of the statesman or stateswoman is force and make-believe and not what is moral and just. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. And Ian Batchelor, hello. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got to lead off, as always. Now, you can help me, guys, by not... If you post comments to me during the lead-off, I won't be able to answer them because I'll be reading. At the end, I'll just go back and get rid of any trolls that turn up. Then I'll answer as many of your comments as I can. But I know from experience, because I think these live streams are becoming increasingly popular, I may not be addressing every single question. I mean, feel free to talk amongst yourselves. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Steve Palmer, hello, says Ben in bullet points gives us the reasons why to vote one way or the other. Well, that's up to you, Steve. I don't know if you're American. I'm not, but I'm going to go through the lead off of this. Hi, Pat Riot. Greetings. I'll go through the lead off, and then you guys talk amongst yourselves. But if you address comments to me while I'm reading the lead off, then I won't be able to respond. At the end of the lead off, then we can talk about what I have actually says. And Fab Moon says, Ben, artist formerly known as Treehouse, Fabian Moon. I know you, Fabian. Yes. How are you? We have met a few times. Yeah. And Crystal Energy says, I refuse to vote and have never voted. I sent the letter back saying no contract. That's fair enough. Crystal. I mean, I think there's been some exceptions. Diego F says vote Hillary. Dearie me. You came into this class a bit late, Diego Rivera. Okay, so let us begin. Talk amongst yourselves, but don't address any comments to me just yet. Now, I'm going to talk about the US presidential election, which from an outsider's point of view, I'm British. I'm not American. I don't have a say in it myself. In fact, most Americans are not going to have a say in it either this time, which for reasons I'll explain. I am partisan, though. I'm looking at it from the outside and thinking, what would I do if I was American? If I were an American, I would definitely vote for Donald Trump. Absolutely. And I've done several videos explaining why. I don't need to go through all the reasons just yet. Or I don't need to repeat myself because I've covered it many, many times and explained why I would support Donald Trump. Now, what's going to happen in this election is very uncertain. This is completely unprecedented in all of history, what we're experiencing right now, certainly in the history of the United States of America. There's only one thing I think we know for certain about this upcoming election. The election is due to take place on November the 3rd, as always. Just like the UK general elections, they'll be voting during the day, a count overnight. In the morning, things are sorted. Everyone knows what the results are during the morning. And I think on the morning of November the 4th, in fact, I'm certain it will be announced that Joe Biden has won. No matter what happens, it's going to be announced that Joe Biden has won the election and is therefore going to become the new president of the United States. Yeah. Now, before everyone goes, "Oh, Ben, why are you being such a defeatist? Come on, don't give up." Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to explain that's not the end of the story. In fact, that's just the beginning of the story, because it's after that moment that the real fun begins. As I said, this is not a normal election. I believe that at some point that this election is not going to be. That's not going to be the end of it. The election is going to be contested through various means, and I think it's going to be something unpredictable. I mean, it's going to be very, very. It's going to be a very, very decisive moment, I think, in the history of the world and what's going to happen in the future. You see, the thing is, the election is not a real election. This is why I'm calling this live stream the US presidential non-election. It's not going to be an election. There are two main problems with this election, which means that it is illegitimate vote. And one is postal ballots. That is the actual counting of the vote itself, the registering and counting of the vote, and opinion polls. And I'm going to go through both of those. I just got just one moment. I'm just going to make a quick adjustment here. Just remember something I've got to add to notes later on. As always in live streams, I can't, this is unrehearsed. I'm going to be doing it off the cuff. So now I've been following the lead up to this election in various different ways. Various different commentators have talked about it, and I, of course, am partisan in this, as I've explained. But I have made an effort to be objective, which means I have listened to both sides of the story. For example, I've listened to from the pro-Trump side. I've listened and watched the videos by Styx Hexenhammer. And he's not only pro-Trump, he's very optimistic about a Trump victory. But I've also watched old Kevin and Christie. You're talking about Americana land, as Kevin calls it. And Kevin Logan and Christie Winters, who are very pro-Biden. And another guy called Vaush. I don't know if you heard of him. It's Vaush. He's part of this kind of bread tube community, which is a segment of left-wing communist anarchists on YouTube. They're like a community of those people on YouTube, and Vaush is a part of that. He's been covering this as well. So I've tried to get as much. I've tried not to stay in some kind of echo chamber of people I agree with, because of course, the accusation that's going to be made to me by everybody over this situation is, well, it just shows how out of touch you are, Ben. You're so out of touch. Well, I'm trying not to be. This is the point, because now in Vaush's videos, he's done a video, and it is entitled. I don't know if I've still got it open. It's worth watching, actually. It is entitled "Trump faces a crushing defeat in this election." That's not good. That doesn't sound very optimistic, does it? In fact, it sounds very pessimistic. However, we'll come into that. I'll talk about that in a minute, exactly what that means. You see, he's got reason for thinking that if he doesn't quite understand exactly what's going on here. I think Vaush believes this is a normal, fair election. It's an election like every other, in which there's no interference at all. Or there is interference in other elections, which I'll talk about. Of course, I did about the 2016 one. But what you'll find in US presidential elections is they tend to be very close. The United States is dominated by two major parties. That is the Grand Old Party, the Republicans, the GOP, and the Democratic Party. These two parties are very old. They date back almost 200 years. And they are principally throughout the entire, most of the 20th century, when the Southern Democrats collapsed, basically the entire political landscape now for over 70 years has been dominated basically by these two parties. So the Democratic, of course, are sort of centre-left, Republicans centre-right. There are no extremists, as always. And, you know, before the days of populism, there were no extremists in either direction. But what you'll find is in every election, I remember, and I've been studying them for quite a while. That is, for example, Bush Gore, and the various one, the Obama one he did against Romney, the one he did against John McCain. Opinion polls are very close. They're always very close, usually within 2 to 3 points. I mean, when Obama was up against John McCain, there was like a 5-point difference between them. Obama had a 5-point lead over Biden. That's about as extreme as it gets. And of course, this closeness was the reason why sometimes elections are contested. The most famous example is 2000, in which Al Gore contested the election against George W. Bush. Now, I didn't really pay much attention to that because it wasn't really relevant, because both Bush and Gore are members of the Skull and Bones Society. They're both establishment figures. They're both good friends of the Clintons and George Soros and all the Henry Kissinger and all the usual characters. So what you have is you have like elections, you have like a very close, usually the opinion polls in the few months leading up to the elections are within 2 to 3 points of each other. That's about normal for a US election. And then they tend to narrow in the last month or so. This election is different. What we have here is, let's just get up the actual poll. I'll go to the actual page we're talking about here. This is Project 538. That is the national US polls. Okay. Joe Biden currently 52.2%, Trump 42%. So this election is exceptional. We have Joe Biden more than 10 points ahead of Trump. More than 10 points. I've never seen this before, ever. I mean, a lot of people saying this. Vosh actually made this point. This is unprecedented in US politics. And guess what? Over the last couple of days, they've diverged. Trump has actually dropped a point. Biden has risen 1.5 points over the last couple of days, which means with less than a month to go to the election, there's not a convergence. There's not a narrowing. There's a widening. There's a divergence of opinion in the United States. Because if you go back to March or April, you see the average lead. I'm just looking at a graph now. I can't show you it, but I can't do the screen sharing thing. I'm sorry about that. But what happens is that there's the average lead of 2 to 3 points. Then you get to June, and suddenly you get a divergence. Trump plummets by 3 points. Biden rises by 2 points, and you get like a 7-point or so lead, 7 to 8, and it's now literally it narrowed a little bit last month, and now suddenly it's shot to over 10 points. And these polls. This is an aggregator. 538, Project 538 is an aggregator. It's a poll aggregator, which means, because the polls do vary. I'll say a bit more about the details of how polling works in a minute. But there's different organizations do the polling, and the aggregator takes the results of all of them and creates an average. And we have Biden plus 10.2. That is the average results. This is incredible. And I mean, I don't know if is there a precedent for this, and it's. And I mean, I suppose there's a sense that something is wrong somewhere. And I mean, I know people are going to accuse me of being out of touch, but if this poll is correct, it means that the American people have made a very, very positive and very decisive choice in their future leader. They are very, very enthusiastic about Joe Biden. They see Joe Biden as a great moral and spiritual leader. He is literally that shadow behind the gasworks, as Rodney said in Only Fools and Horses. He is the great savior in that. Do you remember my Apocalypse video where I play that clip from The Lady in the Water? And You know, this is the guy that she's talking about, the nymph story. It's, you know, you would see whenever you drive down the streets in the United States, you see Biden posters in every window. You see, I'm riding with Biden signs in every front garden. You know, people have bumper stickers with Joe Biden on everywhere you go. He's incredibly popular, incredibly respected, incredibly admired by most of the American people, and they see him as they have an enormously optimistic view of him, and they really, really badly want to choose him. Trump, on the other hand, is despised by most of the nation. President Trump has the incumbent advantage, but basically most people are fed up with him because he has crashed the economy. Trump has crashed the economy. Everything is in tatters. Half of America is unemployed. People are losing their homes. Trump is an incredible warmonger. He's invaded 12 countries during the last 4 years. I mean, he's invaded Algeria. He's invaded Libya. He invaded Portugal. He's invaded North Yorkshire. He's invaded Belgium. You know, he's invaded Oxford, and I'm living under military rule at the moment of Trump. He's incredibly sleazy. He's had numerous affairs, and these have all been in the newspapers, and he's shown himself to be horribly morally degenerate. You know, we've got soldiers coming back dead in flag draped coffins continuously with all the wars that Trump has started. And he's universally hated by the country, and they've had enough of him, and they're making a statement they really want to get rid of him now. And you can see that's the image that we've got. The question is, does what I just described match reality? Because that's what you would expect with polls like that. I mean, Sargon did a video about this. I mean, look at this, right? Florida. Let's just give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Florida, okay? Now, Florida is notorious for being split 50-50 on everything. This was the point that Al Gore made when he challenged George W. Bush in the courts over the 2000 presidential election. You know, there's a saying, you know, if Floridians were given a choice of what to have to dinner, they were given a choice of what to have for dinner, either ice cream or a mashed up toad. It'll be maybe 50.1% will say ice cream, you know, something like that. They are divided down the middle on everything. Well, guess what? Current polling averages: Biden plus 4.3%. The deadlock in Florida has been broken finally, and only now, in this particular election. Now, Sargon of Akkad made a video called "Is Trump Losing?" and he made the point that, of course, what I've just described about in my description of Joe Biden and President Trump is completely false. It's back to front. Trump, wherever you go, seems to have a huge enthusiasm. This is what Styx Hexenhammer calls the enthusiasm gap. You go around, you drive around cities, you see Trump stickers everywhere. His team have been out campaigning. They've been knocking on doors. They've been talking to people. Biden hasn't done any real campaign. He's been sitting around doing Zoom calls from what looks like a converted school gym. Joe Biden is a very shallow, boring, staid, and rather conventional individual. He's also very old. He's actually 77, which is pretty old for a president. If he were elected, it would make him by far the oldest president in history. Trump is actually the current oldest. Trump is actually 3 years younger than Biden, but mentally and physically, he's in much better shape. Much, much better shape. Biden stumbles over his words. He forgets things. He sort of looks down. He's called Sleepy Joe for a reason. And even the people who support him, I've been listening to what they've been saying. Even the people who support him really don't like him very much. They don't feel he offers very much. He doesn't stand for anything. All he stands for is Orange Man Bad. His entire campaign, everything he's running for president for, is about how awful his opponent is. And the only people who are supporting him, they're only supporting him to get rid of Trump because they don't like Trump. Joe Biden is a walking ballot box for people who don't like President Trump. Now, that's not a very good basis, is it, for a political campaign? It's very campaigns run on for negative reasons tend not to go very far, because who wants to vote for a negative reason? Especially the majority of people, 10 plus % over the incumbent, want to vote for that reason. I mean, it's not really much. It's not very nice, is it? It's not a very nice position to be in. It's not a very attractive position to be in. So sitting here thinking, oh God, I've got no hope, I've got nothing. We just got to get rid of this evil Trump. I'm just going to vote for anyone. Joe Biden, I'll vote for him. That is literally what they are saying. This is what Kevin Logan and Christy Winters are saying. This is what Vaush is saying. Vaush did a video about what's known as the Bernie or Busters. These were the Bernie Sanders supporters who, when Bernie was deselected, they said, "Oh, sod it, I'm not going to bother." He was saying, no, Joe Biden's horrible, but we've got to vote for him to get rid of Trump. They're actually saying this, these people. Are we actually saying that such a negative ambition has inspired the country so much? I think I'm going to suggest today that these polls are not accurate. And I think these polls are actually distorting. These polls are a form of psychological warfare. And I know what a lot of you are going to say. As I said, this is where some people will come out and say, but you're out of touch, Ben. You've been living in this, you're on the other side of the Atlantic, and you've got your own opinions, you're biased, and you don't have your finger on the pulse of the American people. Well, that's partly true, because I am partisan and I'm not American. I live a long way away. But as I said, I've made an effort to be objective. I mean, I don't think there are many people on my side of the argument who go to so much trouble to watch the bread tubers, to watch Christy and Kev. Not least because I don't like them very much and they don't like me. I made a whole video about Christy Winters, and she did refer to it once, and it wasn't very flattering, I can tell you. Kevin Logan once called me scum. That's the only time he's ever addressed me. He called me scum. So I have made an effort to be objective here. So supposing these polls are not accurate, supposing these polls are giving out a distorted message, how could that be done? I've looked into a background about this, because it says here, political polling is one of the few areas in American life which has basically survived unchanged since the advent of the internet. And while that may be about to change, it's not clear that it would be a good thing. It may seem strange to assert that a poll can measure the preferences of the entire country by talking to as few as 800 people, but the maths works if those 800 people are selected through a truly random process. Think about it this way. A certain proportion of Americans currently intend to vote for Donald Trump in the upcoming presidential election. We can't directly observe it, but we know it's there. Polling is how we indirectly estimate that proportion. Over the course of the poll, you might, by pure chance, call a cluster of people who all intend to vote for Trump. But so long as the sample is random, they'll be averaged out by those who don't intend to, and so on. As the sample gets bigger, the average gets closer and closer to the true proportion. The problem comes if the sample isn't really random. After what was perceived as a disastrous first debate for Barack Obama against Mitt Romney in the 2012 Democratic voters became less likely to answer surveys. As a result, poll results shifted towards Romney, even though his actual support didn't increase. It's just the samples were biased towards Romney voters. If the sample is bad, the results follow. To achieve that randomness, telephone polls generally make use of random digit dial systems. Yeah, essentially, the way they do these polls, they literally call people up and ask them what they think. I mean, no one's ever done that to me, but it's likely that over the course of your lifetime, you will at some point be called up by one of these people. They randomly generate the last 4 digits as if trying to reach a particular population. Like a racial or occupational group, researchers can purchase lists of numbers and then randomly pick off that list. Despite these efforts to achieve a random sample through response rates remain shockingly low. In other words, people say, bugger off and mind your own business. Especially among younger people, Spanish speakers, evangelicals, and African Americans, and that means black people. To correct for this sort of bias in the samples, pollsters make use of weighting. In the simplest form, a pollster might find that only 6% of the sample is black compared to 12% of the American public. As such, a pollster might use weighting to, in effect, count black responses twice towards the overall results. When weighting is done in this way, based on known demographic factors like race, age, or gender, it's not too problematic, but it is still as much an art as a science. There's also not complete agreement about what factors should be weighted. If a poll has a low proportion of Democrats or Republicans, should it be weighted to be used to correct for that? Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? I mean, so that's an example of how they do it. They make these polls by just sampling random people, about 800 or more, and they phone them up and ask them what they think. And of course, you could say, well, that's, even if it's inaccurate, it's not inaccurate when it shouldn't be inaccurate when you take into account there are dozens of companies that do this, and poll aggregators like the one I quote for take an average of all their results. So again, you have more averaging. So what you should have as a result of this is a very, very precise awareness of American opinion. Now, there are so many of these companies, it's impossible to examine them all, because I want to see, what I want to know, because is it possible theoretically for these polls to be producing falsehoods, false data, and therefore giving false results to the American people and to the people in general? Now, I can't. There's dozens. This is because I've no direct evidence this is happening. I want to know, is it theoretically possible? Because if it's theoretically possible, you can bet someone's going to try and do it for reasons that I'll explain. So let's just look at I'm going to look at 4 separate polling organizations, because there's so many of them. Like I said, they're all independent. The first one is one of the most famous. It's called Ipsos Mori. Ipsos Mori actually is a Latin. If you know your Latin, it actually means they die in Latin. It does. Run it through Google Translate, you'll see. So Ipsos Mori. Now this is the biggest polling and most famous. It's a market. It says here, this is a market research company based in London, England, and it was created by a merger in 2005. Started in 1946 by Mark Abrams. Was called Research Services Limited. Operated until 1991, then acquired by Ipsos. Then, of course, it merged with Mori and became Ipsos Mori. Methodology. Here we go. Ipsos Mori research is conducted via a wide range of methodologies using computer-assisted telephone interviewing, which is basically what I just described, where they generate random numbers and call them, and face-to-face and internet surveys. Face-to-face is what is sometimes called focus groups, as what Adam Curtis called 5 people sipping wine in Kettering. Internet surveys, I don't know the details of that, but I assume it means basically emails, and then people asking me what your emails are. It says many telephone services use a random digit dialing to interview representative groups of the population. Okay, that's Ipsos Mori. Now here's another very big one. Rasmussen Reports. It's an American polling company founded in 2003. And it says the company engages in political commentary and collection, publication, and distribution of public opinion and polling information. It conducts nightly tracking and all national and state level of elections, politics, current events, consumer confidence, business topics, and the United States President's job approval. Yeah. It says here, Rasmussen's polling in the 2012 US presidential elections has been criticized as highly inaccurate. Well, you see, it's only just one poll, you see. The whole point of the aggregator is even if one poll is bad, you can get an average, you see. So that's Rasmussen. Founded in 2003 by Scott Rasmussen. The business model engaged in collection, publication, distribution. It sounds pretty similar reading through this. It sounds very similar actually to Ipsos Mori. But it's just a completely separate organization. Okay, so we go to this is the U.S. Center for Political Future at the Dornsife College. It's known as USC Dornsife. This is a center established in order to combat uncivil political discourse and promote bipartisan, fact-based dialogue on national issues. That sounds awfully Orwellian, doesn't it? But the center director is Robert Shrum, co-director Micah Murphy. Founded in 1978. Institute of Politics and Government, it was originally called. In 1987, it was renamed by the Jesse E. Murray Institute of Politics, and it has several departments and initiatives that further its mission. And it doesn't actually talk about much of the. It doesn't actually talk about. It does like seminars and conferences and things like that. It has people such as Nancy Pelosi has spoken there because they have like live seminars and things. Oh, blimey, yeah. John Kerry. You know him, yeah. And finally, Gallup. Now, Gallup is the oldest and most famous of these polling organizations. And it's not appearing on Wikipedia. Hang on, there we go. This is Gallup Inc. is an American an analytics and advisory company based in Washington, D.C., founded by George Gallup in 1935. The company became known for its public opinion polls conducted worldwide, starting in the 1980s. It says Gallup is a private employee-owned company based in Washington, D.C. That's a workers' cooperative. That's good. I approve of those very much. It maintains between 30 and 40 offices globally, so it's a big company. Yeah. Including offices at the Gallup Riverfront campus in Omaha, Nebraska, that has 2,000 employees. Yeah, let's have a look at its methodology. Polling in the United States. The Gallup poll is a division of Gallup that regularly conducts public opinion polls. Analysis and videos are published daily in the form of data-driven news. Historically, the Gallup poll has measured and tracked the public's attitudes concerning politics, social issues, and economic issues, including sensitive or controversial subjects. It says here, Gallup Daily Tracking is made up of 2 surveys. This is their methodology. They conduct 500 interviews from across the USA per day, 350 days of the year, with 70% on cell phones and 30% on landlines, cell phones being mobile phones. Gallup Daily Tracking relies on live interviews, dual-frame random digit dial samplings, which is what we were talking about before, with the random phone number generators. So it's the methodology is pretty similar. So in all those there's 4 separate companies, one of dozens involved in this polling business, which leads to creating this strange result that we see here. In that is that Joe Biden is 10.1% ahead of Trump. The question is, would it be possible with all those separate companies to produce some kind of distorted result for the purposes of psychological warfare? That's more than I know. I can't work out whether that is statistically possible or whether it is feasible practically. However, when I watched Sargon of Akkad's video, he talks about this. I mean, he didn't go into this area because he's desperate to avoid being called a conspiracy theorist, but he points this out. He points out the enthusiasm gap that he has observed, that I have observed, and he, like me, likes to look at what the other side are thinking. And it's extraordinary. I mean, in the 2016 election, there was an enthusiasm gap in favor of Trump. But it was not as big as this. I mean, there were people supporting Hillary for positive reasons. They did go along with essentially her vision. There was an ideological vision behind her campaign, behind her run for president. Joe Biden has no ideological vision at all. He stands for nothing. Nothing at all other than this negative ambition to remove Trump from office. That's all he stands for. The enthusiasm gap is palpable. You see it everywhere. You see the stadiums that Trump is filling up. And you get like maybe a few thousand people watching Biden at home on their computer as he does these Zoom calls. Like I said, there are people actively campaigning in the real life for Trump. He has a team of canvassers. He has a team of leafleters and people on the street talking, things like that. Biden has none of these things. Biden's supporters, so-called, are just sitting at home biting their nails, hoping that they can get rid of Trump. Now, does that, as Sargon says, it just doesn't add up to this. It doesn't add up to. Well, it's actually changing as I watch. I think it was less than 10.1%, a double-digit advantage to Biden, which you hardly ever see in opinion polls in the United States. As I said, which is pretty much split down the middle. I mean, Florida is an extreme example, but even nationally, it's usually just 2 to 3 points in it, which converge at the election. They're now diverging. Biden's approval has soared within the last couple of days. Trump's plummeted. Trump has dropped an entire point in the last 24 hours. So if it is possible for the polls to give out false data, even multiple companies, as I said, dozens of separate companies, completely independent from each other, some of them employee-owned, some of them workers' cooperatives, in the case of Gallup, I mean, is it really possible for some kind of shenanigans to go on to give people a false impression of who's the most popular? Because it's, as I said, as implausible as that sounds, how else do you explain the enthusiasm gap and this contradiction with the enthusiasm gap? And Sargon, who's a very cautious person, he's not a loony like me. He thinks there's something weird going on here, and so do I. You see, these opinion polls could be counted as a form of psychological warfare. By that I mean to demoralize the opposition, demoralize the anti-establishment candidate by making people think the establishment candidate has a huge lead, and they don't have and their own anti-establishment candidate doesn't have a single chance of winning. That will demoralize them to the point where they might stay at home and not even bother going out voting. They might decide not to campaign or attend Trump's rallies, and Trump's campaign could even grind to a halt as a result of this pessimism, this false pessimism. Now, I'll come to that at the end. Here we go. I'm just going to adjust my notes again. Sorry, it won't be a sec, ladies and gents. All right. I hope you're doing all right in the chat box. I can't see what you're posting, as I said, at the moment. Now, another problem is the vote itself. Is the vote going to be a true and accurate representation of what people are voting? In other words, are the results of the vote going to match what people are actually voting for? That's a long-winded way of saying, is the election going to be rigged? Is electoral fraud going to be committed? Now, it's astonished me over the last few years how complacent people are about electoral fraud, because this has come up several times in my country, in Britain, with the Scottish independence referendum, with Brexit, with the last general election. It's almost like we've come to accept it as normal. For example, in football. Now, I was having a conversation with a porter about football, which often happens because porters love football. And we were talking about the 2005 World Cup, which France won after a rather lackluster final, in which the key player Ronaldo sort of turned up 5 minutes before the kickoff and was allowed to play, and then Brazil played in it. Brazil basically threw it, and France won. And Diego Maradona, do you remember him? Yeah, he's infamous, isn't he? He said right at the beginning in the first round, he said, "Oh, the whole thing's rigged. The whole tournament is rigged so that France will win." I mean, no one believed him. They thought he's just a drug-addled old drunk. No one's going to take any notice of him. But then France won, and everyone looked back at him and think, "Well, look, if anyone would know about cheating, it would be him, wouldn't it? Because he's the world's biggest cheat." What if that's true? And I talked about this with my brother Porter, and what he said absolutely astonished and dismayed me. He said, he sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, "Oh, right, well, never mind. Maybe next time it'll be rigged so that England win it." I was listening to a man who had accepted fraud as just normal, had accepted that deception exists in sport. Now, if that's the case, then you see, if he really believes that, then how can he even be enthusiastic about it? Because if it's rigged, then it's not a competitive sport at all. this is why they have referees and things like that. I mean, but he just sort of shrugged his shoulders. Oh well, maybe it's not. It's just it becomes a charade. It becomes like the old wrestling. Do you remember? And I think maybe people are thinking that in politics now, and they shouldn't. It should be something that we should be very worried and indignant and refuse to accept it, because an election that is rigged is not an election at all. And this one, in that case, will not be. There's a lot more positive evidence to say that election rigging is going on. I can't prove, I've got no positive evidence that there's poll rigging going on, but there's definite evidence that election rigging is going on. And indeed, we have seen it we saw it in 2016. We should have done more back then, and we didn't. But there's been several videos of people I've been watching. For example, Alex Jones, he interviewed Laura Loomer today. Now, she's in this election as one of the Congress people, because she's actually running for the Congress. Now, the election takes place at the same time as the president. And, of course, the opinion polls make it look as if the Democrats are going to steal both houses of government, that is of the legislative branch, that is the Senate, the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives. Again, is that correct? But she was saying about this issue, she was talking about how in her, where she is running, which is, I forgot where it is now, where she's running. Firstly, she passed through the primaries and she was selected as the candidate. And Laura Loomer, she's pretty good actually. I quite like her. She's a really against the deep state. She's talking about the enthusiasm gap with Alex Jones. But the opinion polls keep saying Biden's in the lead, and she's saying, I don't believe it. We've also had, that's referring to the opinion polls, but she then refers to James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe of Project Veritas. He's discovered an actual vote rigging exercise by Ilhan Omar. Now, Ilhan Omar is a representative. She's a representative of the 5th Minnesota District of the House of Representatives. And she's basically involved in a scam to buy voting ballots off people. And this is the problem is this is where we come to the problem of postal ballots. And James O'Keefe has positive videotaped in evidence of her collaborators going around just buying people's voting slips off them so that they can vote, so that it's all faked. And where she's getting the money from, that's the question, because it must cost a lot of money. She's not short of a few bob, is she? And he's basically handed this to the police. The police are investigating. Electoral fraud happened in 2016. It happened. There were people voting under identities that later turned out to be dead, or they had dates of birth which put them at 150 years old. It was James O'Keefe discovered that the people were being bussed around on minibuses, which are hired again at great expense, from polling station to polling station to vote in separately, and it was all for the Democrats. This was all done by the Democrats. Now, this is something that should have been pursued in 2016. And it wasn't. Trump should have actually pursued this back then. He didn't, because it didn't work. Because he happened to win. He thought, what the hell, that's it. I'm over that hurdle. The fraud didn't work. I'll just leave it. But he should have pursued it. Now, normally in a US election, you have postal ballots, just like you do in a British election. It's a minority. I mean, it's really only for people who can't get to the polling station. So that would be, say, disabled people, or people who are very old and don't have much mobility. Maybe they can't stand in queues, or expatriates, people who live abroad. Again, a minority of citizens. But this has been rising over the last few years. It was 25% in 2016, and in this particular election, it is up to 80% of people of voters have been approached and asked specifically if they want to vote by post. And there's a huge number of people. Here we go. Voting by mail is an increasingly common practice in the United States, with 25% of voters nationwide mailing their ballots in 2016 and 2018. This is the COVID-19 pandemic. This is why this has happened in 2020, has been predicted to cause a large increase in mail voting because of the possible danger of congregating in a public place at the polling station. For a 2020 election, a state-by-state analysis conducted that 76% of Americans are eligible to vote by mail, a record number. The analysis predicts that 80 million ballots could be cast by mail in 2020, more than double the number in 2016. The Postal Service sent letters to multiple states in July 2020, warning that the service would not be able to meet the state's deadlines for requesting and casting last-minute absentee ballots. That's what that video was about that was sent to me by, who was it who sent that to me? In addition to the anticipated high volume of mail ballots, the prediction was due in part to numerous measures taken by Louis DeJoy, the newly installed Postmaster General of the United States, including banning overtime and extra trips to deliver mail, which has caused delays, and the dismantling and removing of hundreds of high-speed mail sorting machines from postal centers. The House of Representatives voted an emergency grant of $25 billion to the post office to facilitate the predicted flood of mail ballots. However, President Trump has repeatedly denounced mail voting. This is important. Yeah, this is very important. Because if you vote by post, it's all very well, but it's out of sight, out of mind. You put what you do is your ballot paper is in an envelope. You write what you want to, who you want to vote for, put a cross on the paper. You put it in the envelope. The envelope is sealed, supposedly securely, and it's put into the post box. And now, once you've done that, you don't know. Once you've done that, unless you go and check, as President Trump suggested, he suggested people verify their ballots. You don't know how that vote has been registered, if it's been registered the way you want, or even if it's been registered at all. Now, in normal elections here in Britain, we still have a fairly secure system. It's not 100%, and I talked about that in previous videos, but you put a cross on a piece of paper, the paper's put in a sealed box. The boxes are counted in your local count sorting area, which is like usually a town hall. You can go along and watch. You can watch your vote and everyone else's being counted in front of you. You can't do that if you vote by post. And you may think to yourself, well, how are they going to organise such a massive electoral fraud with so many ballots? It wouldn't be possible, Ben. There are too many people who need to be involved. Well, not many people have to be involved. There's only, you see, most of the states in the electoral college system are safe. They're safe for one party or another. But there are swing states and battleground states, and sometimes the actual voting block is very, very close indeed. Sometimes a state can be flipped with just a couple of thousand votes. In fact, Trump won quite narrowly in 2016. An attempt was made to rig the election back then. The people who did it will have learned their lessons, and they're probably going to do a much more dedicated job this time. And as you see, what James O'Keefe discovered about Ilhan Omar, you see, that could be all that's necessary. Just one person with a lot of money going around harvesting ballots. And that state goes to the other side. The electoral college will then flip to the other party, to the establishment candidate. It doesn't need to be a big operation. And you also need to dispose of ballots. Now, to dispose, you may think to yourself, well, Ben, you're saying that every single, when a postal ballot comes in, you have to have a whole load of people there opening them up, just steaming them open, the way the spies do. Going out, checking to see if he votes for Trump. Get rid of that one. Next. Oh, that one's voting for Biden. Keep that in. But you don't have to do that. All you need to do is dispose of certain postal ballots collected in certain areas. Now, you know which particular areas are going to vote which way. You know that certain towns, certain districts are more likely to vote for the anti-establishment candidates. And you just quietly get rid of the ballot papers from those particular areas. That's all you have to do. You know that a town where 80% of people are Trump supporters, you target that one. You destroy the ballots that come in from that one. And if you know there's a place where people are more likely to vote for Joe Biden, you don't destroy the ballots from there. It's not that difficult. But it's perfectly possible with this unprecedented situation of so many mail-in ballots. Anyone who wants to pull any funny business, there's no oversight. There's no electoral commission that's going to stop them. This is a new territory, and this is where we come to potential rejection of election results. I'm going to finish the lead off with this because this is the important bit. Because I'm sitting there fuming, thinking, well, what are you going to do about it, Trumpy? Come on, you've got to do something. Well, the good news is, based on what he's been saying, he is going to do something about this. I'll just read you the article here. During the election, multiple articles have been published suggesting that Trump may not or will not accept the election results, owing primarily to his tweets suggesting the election will be rigged against him. Well, no shit, Sherlock. And that's his own suggestions. He will not accept electoral defeat. Well, why should he? Why should he? Because it won't be electoral defeat, you see. I mean, the president himself saying this is brilliant. On July 19th, Trump declined to answer whether he would accept the results, telling the Fox News anchor, Chris Wallace, who he was the guy who moderated the debate, remember? I have to see. No, I'm not going to say yes, and I'm not going to say no. At an August the 17th campaign event in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Trump said, "The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged." True. Again, well done, Mr. President, for saying that. Trump repeated this sentiment during an appearance at the 2020 Republican National Convention. At a September the 19th campaign rally at Fayetteville, North Carolina, Trump declared that, "You can't have Biden as your president. Maybe I'll sign an executive order that you cannot have him as your president." Well, he can't sign an executive order to stop him being president, but he can use other means, which I'll come to in a minute. On September the 23rd, 2020, Trump again declined to commit to a peaceful transition of power after the election. Congressional Republicans rebuked Trump by saying there would be a peaceful transition if Trump lost, although they did not explain how they would guarantee such a transition if Trump were to refuse leaving the presidency. This has been described as a threat to upend the constitutional order. Well, it's a false threat, because you can't upend a constitutional order because of a fake election. If an election is fake, then it is null and void. Trump also stated he expected the Supreme Court to decide the election. That's probably going to be true. And that he wanted a conservative majority in case of the election dispute, reiterating his commitment to have a ninth justice following the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a pro-Democrat Biden supporter who conveniently has died. Now, normally it's the other way around. It's good guys who die conveniently, like Kennedy, but in this case, a bad person died conveniently, and he's replacing her with someone on his side. In April 2020, Biden suggested that Trump may try to delay the election. Why not? Saying that Trump is going to try and kick the election somehow, come up with some rationale why it can't be held. Well, it's not coming up with some rationale, it's serious threats. On July the 30th, Trump tweeted, "With the universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history," and asked if it should be delayed until people can safely cast ballots in person. I wrote an article about this on the Panama Voice. Experts have indicated for the election to be legally delayed, such a decision must be undertaken by Congress. That's true. That's true. Trump can't delay the election in person, but he could do other things as well if he's suspicious. It has been noted by several legal experts that the Constitution sets the end of the presidential and vice presidential terms as the 20th of January, a hard deadline which cannot be altered. That's Inauguration Day. So, here we go. President Trump conceded that the post office would need additional funds to handle the additional mail-in voting, but said he would block any additional funding for the post office to prevent any increase in balloting by mail. Well, he knows that this is the keystone to the fraud. President Trump has been very critical of voting by mail, often making allegations of massive voter fraud. Yeah, not groundless either. We've just seen that, haven't we? James O'Keefe has revealed that. In August 2020, a federal judge ordered Trump's campaign and the Republican Party to produce evidence of such a fraud in Pennsylvania. Well, this was in August 2020. What about what Project Veritas discovered? What if there's an investigation into that? Will that do? I know that's Minnesota, not Pennsylvania, but it sets a precedent. In September 2020, FBI Director Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Trump, testified under oath that the FBI has not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether by mail or otherwise? Well, they don't know, do they? Because this is not a historical situation. So what's going to happen? As I said, on the November the 4th, it's going to be announced that Biden has won. Now, I think this will be, just generally in terms of my subjective feelings, and the feelings I think of most people, even those who will be pleased, it'll be very anticlimactic. It'll be a very, very Pyrrhic victory. And at the inauguration of Biden, do you think you're going to have huge crowds there if it ever happens? Do you think you're going to have huge crowds like you did with Trump? Probably not. There'll be a couple of people walking their dogs who'll stop by to see Joe put his hand on the Bible, etc., etc. But that's if Biden ever becomes president in such a situation, because from what we've seen from Trump so far, the noises he has made indicated he won't let this go down lightly. And he says he won't guarantee a peaceful transfer of power should it be announced that he has lost in an election. And why should it? Why should he step down from office when a fraudulent election states that he is no longer president? Why should he do that? I mean, despite what the FBI director said, we have enough reason to be suspicious, I think, based on the work done by Project Veritas and Alex Jones and other people Alex Jones interviewed someone from the Postal Service talking about this. The FBI, what the FBI said, what Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, said, is kind of a bit prodigal, isn't it? When you consider that, no, they've not investigated yet, have they? What about when what if Trump orders him, Wray, to investigate? Will he investigate properly? They need to bring back Mulder and Scully, I'll tell you. So what I hope is going to happen, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got no idea. What I hope will happen, Trump will just say, look, this is fake. I'm not stepping down from the presidency. Joe Biden is not your president. I'm going to order an immediate investigation into this, put every effort into uncovering what has been done. And if it turns out that there's been any fraud at all, even if one vote has been misplaced, this election is null and void, and we rerun it again. It has to be. He's going to be reasonable. He has to be conditional. He'll say something like, if there's another election which is conducted properly with full, transparent supervision, and I am voted out of power, I will step down. He has to be conditional. He has to be reasonable and say that. This is probably going to go to the Supreme Court of the United States, where hopefully he'll have the investment of Amy Barrett. But if it goes far enough, I mean, the most extreme example of this, if this is going to be a huge test of Trump and the deep state and how powerful Trump and his allies are compared to that of the deep state. It's going to be a huge test. This is going to be really the acid test for the things that QAnon has been talking about. How much clout do they really have compared to the deep state? Because I mean, at a last resort, I would say to the president, I think he has to stick by this principle, even to the point where he has to use force. By force, I mean, and this is controversial, what I'm about to say, he should use his influence within the Department of Defense to prevent, by force, the deep state establishment taking him out of the White House. And that, of course, could get very nasty. But these are nasty times. You don't appease and deal with cheaters and crooks. You have to fight them, sometimes violently. It's a just cause, I think. And I'd be behind him if he chose to do that. So let's see whatever. I'm just going to go back and de-troll. And then I will come to your comments, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for making them. Oh, Cosmic Claire. Hi, Claire. How are you? How many trolls do we have here tonight? We have hello, Lime Specs. Hello, our resident Biden supporter is in the house. Hello, Lime Specs. No doubt you'll be happy about the polling, but I mean, as I said, I don't think the polling is accurate. And where are we now? Okay. Douglas Smythe, hello. How do you do? Paul Culliford, greetings, Pat Riot, hello. Eman Pradima, nice to see you. Yeah, and the I think we discussed that before. So I'm going to have to. Some of you making really good points. Could you make them again? Magma, hello, greetings. Yeah, Magma says something interesting here. I am going to break a rule and stop it. The polls said that Hillary would win in 2016. Yes, they did. Again, it was a very, very narrow. It was much narrower. It was more normal in 2016. It was like 2 to 3 points. This is much more extreme. This is like 10 to 12 points. I mean, at one point, yeah, it did. It was like massively. This is a massive, massive divergence of opinion. This is indicating that the Americans have a very pro-Biden stance. Here we go. Cosmic. Oh, you may. Could you like repeat the things you said? Because some of you, I can't just stop, unfortunately, and stop and talk to you. So please repeat the points you've said. I'm just checking for troll. Gary Robinson, hello. I might have to delete trolls. Matu Libar, hello. How are you, Matu? Welcome. Any new people? I'll just say hello to any new people who join. Right, so I think we're nearly there. You guys have been talking amongst yourselves. Well, Longsight M12, hello. Longsight says, I always hope Biden cheats. All those dumb fucking liberals understand what awaits them. Unfortunately, Longsight, I don't think they care. I mean, look what the Remainers were saying about the EU referendum. Sod the referendum, we want to have our way. Yeah, so Longsight is absolutely right there. Charles Unleashed is in the house. Yeah, I'm Charles. How do you do? There we go. Let's go back up a bit. Where are we? Just working out where everyone's comments are. See, there's 52 people watching, which is great, and then you all make comments about. You see, yeah, I mean, I was being my sarcastic bit at the beginning, saying Trump had invaded like 12 countries. Of course, the point is that alongside says Kamala Harris will take over Biden's position. Oh yeah, it's I put up a meme, didn't I? Do you remember the meme I put up? Some of you saw it on social media. It was from Lord of the Rings. Emma Lone, how do you do? Oh, we've reached the bottom now. Lisa says, question, Ben, I've said this many times, but will again. The White House YouTube page over the last day is very weird. Fauci and Birx telling all to get the vaccine. Very strange. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that guy Fauci, you know his connections to Bill Gates and George Soros. I mean, who was it? I think Max Egan did a video about that, and it proves that these two were connected. These people are connected. It all goes back to AEG and Joseph Mengele and that sort of thing. Hey, Claire. All right. Paul Armstrong says America could be in civil war by Christmas. Paul, I don't know if it'll come to that. I mean, I hope it doesn't, but it could be a choice between we either go to war or we let the deep state take over and take away everything that's been achieved to end the New World Order. I mean, what can you do? Oh, this is the thing. Yeah, I put up a meme from Lord of the Rings. You know this when Grima Wormtongue is working for Sauron and has King Theoden under his spell, and Theoden's like has been degraded into this horrible, like mummified figure, and Wormtongue is whispering in his ear. I thought that's Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Diego Rivera says Benjamin Jones Newsnight. Oh, you remember that one, don't you? I was on Newsnight once. Yeah. Ema says, why don't the Democrats make a big thing about the Franklin cover-up? They didn't want to open Pandora's box. All the dirt different factions bring up against each other is highly controlled. Well, of course not. They don't want to make a cover-up because it'll all come out, won't it? It will come out about the child trafficking, about the little boy who, Johnny Ghosh, wasn't it, who disappeared, and he turns up as an adult working as a bloody prostitute. I remember... Oh, do you remember... what's his name? Anthony Hilda talked about that before he left, before he lost away. Diego Rivera says Mossad will vote Trump. Oh no, Chris says Ben, you need your meds. Yeah, but I know I don't go along with this idea. What you're saying, I know you Diego Rivera, you think Mossad is everything. Mossad is an intelligence agency. It's known for being one of the most brutal on earth, but it doesn't control everything. David Schultz, are you the only Yankee in the chat? I don't know if you are. Kamala Harris and Orville, says Pat Ryan. Yeah, he's a puppet, and sooner or later he may even step down and she'll become the open official president. I mean, maybe that's the plan. And of course, all the lefties will go nuts, don't they? We've got a woman of color as our president. They'll do that, and they'll be completely disarmed like they were with Obama. I mean, a lot of Obama's false credibility came from the fact he's black. Diego Griffiths, Trump coronavirus 33 days before the election. So it's all Masonic, is it? Yeah. Where are we now? Lisa says, we want the best for us and the planet. Yeah, I do. Are you guys... Charles is talking about Yuri Bezmenov, who I do definitely recommend looking up. He's even appeared on a computer game earlier on. I mean, Saga of Akkad is going on about Bezmenov now, but this came up on The Rich Planet many, many years earlier, and that's where I've been looking into it. Yuri Bezmenov is a defector from the KGB, and he talks about the methods that the Soviet Union used to use in terms of subversion, psychological, cultural subversion. What's generally known as cultural Marxism. Of course, it's not just the Soviet Union that was doing that. I think all governments have done that. But yeah, Diego Rivera says Trump is in hospital 3 days, 3 nights. Well, Diego Rivera, I find it interesting that the coronavirus lockdown, the new lockdown rules. Do you remember I said this on the last live stream? It could last for up to 6 months. It's 6 people, 6 feet apart. 6, 6, 6. Yeah. Now, Trump is a Freemason puppet. Diego, we've been through that. We've been through that many, many times. Biden is an old straw man. He makes the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz look clever, doesn't he? Diego has Trump landslide, and we know it. I think Trump landslide. As I said, November the 4th, it's going to be announced that Joe Biden has won. He won't have won. It's not a real victory, and Trump will. I don't think Trump will accept it. He's not going to accept it. But we're going to be told that Biden has won. Richard Kinsey, has RDH retired? Now, I don't think he has. I mean, he's not. He makes series of programs and he does tours and things, but he takes time off in between. I think he's not retired. No. Paul answer, RDH will never retire. No, I don't think he will, actually. Charles says, RDH got really paranoid. Well, yeah, Richard has, I think, his problems in that respect, and I've talked about this openly. I've advised him, to be cautious in certain areas. Yeah. Mary says, Charles Ward says a new system of voting is going to be used. Quantum block voting. Tested sensibly and untrackable. Well, you see, they should use... I don't know about that. That's cool. I remember I saw that. I don't know if it was the program Lisa was in, but I did see Lisa was on Charles Ward's show. But he did. I saw that mentioned somewhere about quantum block voting. There certainly should be some kind of blockchain system put in if it's going to be electronic. Claire, I'm sorry you had an argument there and you got rid of. You can always block people if you don't like them here. I haven't seen anyone here that what qualifies as a troll, like from my point of view. But I'm sorry you had that experience. I really am. Livespec says Biden's a strong warrior and he could win every fight. Livespecs. You know that thing with Robert De Niro and Jim Carrey the other day, that mock debate where Biden is like full of energy and he's a super Biden. It's not real, you know. Patrick Patel, hello, Patrick. Jordan Maxwell, aka Bill Cooper, recounts something awful will happen this month. All right. Well, Bill Cooper died, you know. I mean, aka Bill Cooper. Jordan Maxwell and Bill Cooper aren't the same person. Bill Cooper died in 2001 in suspicious circumstances, I think. But Jordan Maxwell I haven't looked into. But yeah, something awful might happen. I mean, who knows what's going to happen between now and November the 3rd and after? Yeah, Paul, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Max Organ says Bengi Bentwaters is an Illuminati chief. Who's Bengi? Is that me, Bengi Bentwaters? Claire says I'm not completely convinced by Charlie Ward. All right. I don't know much about him except I've watched a couple of his videos, and then Lisa was on his show, and the show's actually, you can find the show actually on her Panway Radio as well. Oh, let's see. Where are we now? Daniel says Biden gets the Rona a week before the election. It's more likely to be the week after, so that Kamala Harris can be the one. I think if you want to know someone I predict will get the Rona, Ghislaine Maxwell. Oh, if Trump keeps the presidency, she'll probably go to trial. Hope she will. Alongside, I've not seen Jordan Maxwell for a while either. Yeah. Cosmic Claire says, I think you've had the Chinese water army set on you, Ben, or maybe just bots. Oh, I get a few trolls occasionally, Claire, but I do get rid of them. David Schultz says, Ben, is the UK heading towards medical martial law? Quite possibly, David. We have Matt Hancock talking about using the army to distribute the vaccine when this vaccine hasn't even been finished its development yet. They're always talking about doling it out, assuming that everyone's going to they're going to lap it up. So it could be that we're going to be injected at gunpoint. I'm not sure. Max Organ says, I've had deep conversations with Simon Parkes and Max Egan on the astral plane, and everything's going to be fine. Well, that's good news, Max. I hope so. I do hope so. Onslow says, Ben, what happens over here if civil war erupts in the States? I don't know, but I know, of course, things that happen here, of course, will affect this country because of the strong cultural links between the United States and Britain and Ireland, of course. I was saying to Trevor this on Third Rail Radio the other day. Of course, we're across on the other side of the ocean, but there's huge political and cultural links between the US and Britain and Ireland. More closer, I think there's more of a bond between us than there is between the US and Canada, for example, or the US and Mexico, even though they're just next door. So it'll affect the whole world. I mean, it will. I mean, the United States it's still a major world power. It's not the global superpower that it used to be, but it is still a major. It's still a cornerstone of influence within the geopolitical sphere, and what happens there will affect the whole world. Absolutely, no doubt. Diego Rivera says Trump's fake assassination after the election. The thing about Trump is if he was going to be got rid of, then he'd been got rid of before he even became president. But there's people protecting him and his family. Absolutely, yes. People protecting his family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lasted this long. He'd have gone the same way as Kennedy. I assume those people are still there. I know they're always going to be trying to get rid of him, but I think he has a very dedicated security team looking after him and his family. Lisa says, I watched Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes again yesterday. Hilarious, isn't it? Yep. Not half, Lisa. I don't think he's going to be invited back, is he? Hello, Ravenhill, the old London sword merchant, 1968. How are you? Hi, Ben. Do you think Trump can win? I'm a bit worried about those that say the polls has Biden in the lead. Well, Ravenhill, that's the I don't know how much of the show you caught before you posted the comment, but that's what I've been talking about for during the lead off, and that's the discussion we've been having. The answer is, it depends. If you define win as winning a fair election, then Trump would win it hands down every time with one hand tied behind his back. But if you define win as who's going to be announced as won, I think it's going to be announced that Biden's won. But he's Biden. But I think the polls are inaccurate. They've deliberately been distorted. And I think the election is going to be rigged. And it's going to be announced that Joe Biden's won when he hasn't really won. And hopefully, I think Trump will do something about it. Longsight says, I live in Miami. I'm getting my carry conceal permit. And even my normie mates are worried about November and are doing the same. I don't blame you, Longsight. I really don't, because, I mean, we here in Britain, we can't do that. But I would recommend tool up, man. Tool up, definitely. Because if you can, do it. Because who knows whether you might need it. You might need it, you know. Lisa says, Ravenhill, the polls are absolute crap. Precisely. Charles, did you see the Jim Carrey thing? The Jim Carrey and Robert De Niro thing was really funny. And it is really satirical. It was like, it was almost taking the mickey out of things. It's taking the mickey out of Biden in that same by making, because he's such a sort of super Biden. Jim Carrey plays this kind of super Biden. He like dances around and poses and things like that. Diego Rivera says, Ben, have you ever considered painting yourself orange in solidarity for Trump? Become the new Tango Man. Well, I have the lack of hair, don't I? And I do sometimes kiss strangers on railway stations. So it's a thought, isn't it? Yeah. Lime Spec says, Biden will be the disclosure president, Ben. Get your libation ready. Oh, my God. Oh, God. Wouldn't it be if he was the disclosure president? I mean, that reminds me, I've got to write to Steve Bassett because I want to get him on the Hapanwo show again, because I want his take on what the effects of the election will have, because I want to know how he thinks it will affect the advocacy process. And no doubt he and I disagree totally on the whole thing, because I was hoping Trump, of course, would be the disclosure president in the last 4 years. He might be the disclosure president again. It could be that the disclosure will come out with as a side effect of the whole incredible tussle that's looming for other things. Charles says, I think Ben is hung up on his inner Charles. Oh, yes, that's right. I couldn't resist it. It comes out sometimes. I turn my back to the camera and take my hat off, and I do my Charles thing, don't I? Hello, David Craigs. Oh, David Craig. Where are we now? The problem is I keep the whole thing keeps just flipping. There's a list of comments here and they just keep moving around. I can't read them properly. Daniel DePercy says Matt Hancock is a George Osborne creation. No personality, no backbone, career politician of the worst kind. Yes, he is indeed. He's and this, I think, is proof of the failure of Boris Johnson. As I said in my video on the subject, that guy would never be where he is if Johnson had managed to keep control, and he hasn't. Max says that Max Egan and Simon Parkes have this all in hand. I haven't had to check that out, actually. Max, I don't follow so much, but Simon, I do. I haven't checked his latest videos yet. But I'll see what they have to say. I hope that will sort it out. Cosmic Claire says, I've been a bit cautious about Max Egan since his Flurfer meltdown. Yes. That was odd. That was extremely weird. I mean, if it was some sort of joke, what sort of joke is that? I wouldn't pull a joke like that. I wouldn't make a video saying, hey, by the way, I think the air's flat, and just end it there. I mean, why did he do that? And then he makes another video kind of taking it back. Why? Is that some? If it's a joke, it's in quite poor taste. Maxwell Organ says Capel Green will answer a lot of questions. It will. It will indeed. Where are we now? Paul says Ben should beg Simon Parks for her Panama radio interview. It'd be nice to get him on the show, actually, Paul. Yeah, I mean, several people have requested him. I will have a word with him about that. Charles says, go on, Ben. Tell them how Charles would slaughter the Democrats. He'd use his psychic powers on them, man. And then he'd challenge them to a game of golf and he'd slaughter them. Emma Lone says, another black man killed by the police. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not least the tragedy, or that if obviously if it's a illegitimate killing and that, but it's the fact that as soon as that happens, 40 cities burn to the ground. It doesn't really matter what the details of the case are. It's just sad. David Schultz says, Operation Warp Speed is using a CIA-linked contractor to keep COVID-19 vaccine contracts secret. The Last Vagabond by Whitney Webb. And you see, David, I mean, who in the right mind is going to put something like that in their body? Who in their right mind is going to allow someone to stick a needle in them with something they don't know what it is, with a manufacturer and a government department that's completely legally immune from any consequences? Diego Rivera says, meteor strikes all over the world imminent. The real reason for the lockdown. I don't think that's the real reason. As for meteor strikes, this is what the reason I do my Hapanmo Radio space weather is to keep an eye on things like this. Of course, it could be that someone will direct a meteor towards us, or there could be some major false flag incident which will, as the run up to the election, it could be that, it could be something like that. Longsight M12 says Trump is the disclosure president, but he's doing it by open defiance with the Space Force. At some point, we will see a major pushback. Maybe the lockdowns are a part of it. We do, and I think the lockdowns are obviously a push for the New World Order, definitely. I don't think it's done specifically for the purposes of getting Trump out. I know some people think the whole thing is simply to get Trump out. It's not. It has other purposes, but it is generally a push towards greater authoritarianism. And Cosmic Claire says, yes, Space Force is definitely something strategic. Yeah, I did a live stream on the Space Force. Yeah. BitShoot says, what do you think of Dave Murphy and Richie Allen? Dave Murphy is someone I used to do a show. I didn't do a show with him, but we were both on Critical Mass Radio, and he did I can't remember the name of his show. Since then, he has become a flat earther. He's become a major flat earther, which is a great shame. I'm not going to turn against him and reject him because of that, or just refuse to talk to him about anything. He's become like a major. He's become like Carl Sargent, Mark Sargent. He's been in these movies and things. I think that's a huge mistake he's making, and I can't. Unfortunately, if you go around saying the Earth is flat, it's one situation where, even though I won't reject any other things he says, other people will. Richie Allen, I've stopped listening to his show. It's not because I don't like him or anything like that, but I do occasionally tune in. But I used to listen every week. So we'll have to start listening to him again. I used to like him. I know he fell out with David Icke, didn't he? I can't remember what his fallout with David Icke was about. I'm not sure. Let's go through. I'll just go through. Hello, Taft Derek Baker. How are you? Yeah, it says Charles Bronson wouldn't approve of what's going down in America. No, he wouldn't, Taft. He'd go, I'm going to knock Joe Biden down. That's what he'd say, wouldn't he? What am I going to do? I'm going to knock Joe Biden down. Emma Lone says, Ben, Sky News just put up a video about it. I predict a riot. Yeah, I was going to check the news because, unfortunately, whenever this happens, and it's all deliberate. I mean, the whole Black Lives Matter thing was set up for this very reason. It was set up so that they could, whenever one of these things happen, one of these awful situations happen, it's immediately politicized, it's immediately inspires angry, brainwashed people into causing mayhem. I mean, it's awful. A lot of people are saying, well, why are they doing this? This is going to backfire. It's going to help Trump's campaign. It might do, but not necessarily, because unfortunately there's a lot of apathy, there's a lot of weakness among people generally. They may be thinking, rather than thinking, oh, this is awful, I'm gonna back Trump because I hate this, and Biden is supporting these people and things like this. They're thinking, oh, look, let's just give these people their presidents, and then maybe they'll just shut up and stop rioting. I'm going to vote for Biden. Charles says, you seem a bit down, Ben, or are you just tired? I don't know. I don't feel either, actually. I don't know why that is. Longsight says, Richie Allen is a bit too far left. I don't know much about Richie Allen lately. I haven't checked it out. Diego Rivera says, who will the reptilians vote for? Well, Biden, obviously. Yeah. Taff Baker, Shumai, bro. Da diolch, da iawn. Hello, Sonara. How are you? Hope you're enjoying the show. Pat Wright says, Charles Bronson could not touch Biden from Wakefield's seg. I don't know what that means. Max Organ says, consequently, I believe everything Richie Allen says. I wouldn't believe everything he says. But he's on the hope not hate list, which is something of an achievement. If you can do that, then because he got on the hope not hate hit list because he has David Icke on his show all the time. And so he made the list. Yeah. Cosmic Claire says, Trump's obviously doing too well, so they have to have another fake event. Yeah, in a word, yeah. Crafty Nice says, Mark's been on Richie Allen. Yes, he has. I remember that, Crafty, yes. David Schultz says, what about Dr. Vernon Coleman? Would you do an interview? He moved to brand new tube and has been on the Richie Allen show on Mondays. Yeah, I'd be glad to. I mean, I haven't spoken to him, but it's quite it's difficult to keep up with all these people, so much going on. I liked what his video, I got him mixed up with John Coleman, the guy who writes the Committee of 300, he was on Red Ice, he wrote the Committee of 300 book. Diego Rivera says, reptilians for Trump. Yeah. So we've got 44 people watching now. My viewing figures are kind of going like the polls at the moment. Trump to make reptiles great again. Lion Spec says, hope, not hate. God, they wind me up. Yeah, hate, not hope, I call them. I mean, it is, as Paul Armstrong says, they're a disgrace, and they are. I mean, what the hell are they doing? What the hell are they saying about people who, completely harmless people, who, non-violent people expressing an opinion, and they are demonized as potential terrorists and haters? It's disgraceful. And of course, hope, not hate, if you look at where their supporters and their funding come from, they're well funded, they're well organized. They're a kind of quango, really. Diego Rivera says, amphibians will vote against Trump for draining their swamp. Very good, Diego Rivera. Very good. Longsight says, do you ever watch Harry Vox, Marv Fugel? No, I don't know who they are. What do you think about QAnon being banned from Facebook? I heard about that, and I only heard about it actually when I was. Well, the first thing I knew about it is when I actually logged into Facebook and I tried to locate the groups, because I was a member of like about a dozen Q groups and they just weren't there, and I thought, what's going on? I kind of guessed immediately what had happened, and I found out Q was basically been banned. Any reference to QAnon at all, posts, groups, comments, anything is immediately deleted. Why now? Why are they so scared? Why do they want to delete Q now? I think they're scared. I think they are terrified of what we could say. They are terrified of the things we talk about, which is what another reason I'm putting this on Audacity is in case this live stream just vanishes before I have a chance to before I have a chance to like put it somewhere else. BitChute says Q is a letter in the alphabet. So is P, S, Y, and O, P. Oh well. The thing about it is BitChute. I mean, I've done an entire couple of videos about that. Why I think Q is real. I know not everyone believes me. I know Kev Baker, for example, thinks the whole thing is a scam. And I don't have a problem. I like Kev. Kev's a good guy, but you know, I've looked again. I've tried to remain objective. I've looked at both sides in this. I listened to Kev's own broadcasts on this matter, and I don't agree. I really don't. Max Organ. Miles says Miles Johnston must have the inside track on this. He does have a track. Yeah. Limespec says, I'm sort of glad Tommy Robinson is not on the scene anymore. He made good points now and then, but he was too toxic with too much baggage. He wasn't the right messenger for racial free speech. Well, I actually did a video on Tommy Robinson, and because I watched Panodrama, and I went to the Day for Freedom event, and I think I did a talk there about it, and how, well, he seems to be, he makes some points about the way this country has changed, it's been controlled. But you see, he has this kind of dark vision of a new world order, the way I do, and his desire to stop it. But for him, the new world order is Islam. He's completely focused on Muslims and Islam and things like that. He's essentially a counter jihadist, whereas I see that simply as it's simply a strategy that's been used by the new world order. And the New World Order is not Muslims, it's not Islam. Max August says Charles is Q. I always wondered who Q. I always thought that myself. Jock of Ages says conservative and right wing channels have been hit hard just now. Yeah, and conspiratorial ones like I like my own. As you know, I've been shadow banned. Diego Rivera says, "Is Trump Agent Orange?" Well, he's gonna make the leaves fall off the deep state's trees. I'm telling you. Emma Lone, Marfugo. I've heard the name, but I don't know. I can't. There's so much out there. I can't take it all in. Oh, what's Diego Rivera? What do grey aliens think about Trump orange fake tan? I don't know. I mean, I don't know about grey aliens. I've got Russell, of course, who is a green alien. So, Russell, what do you think about Trump's fake tan? What's that? No, he didn't buy it on Alpha Centauri in the Boots branch they've got there. I do wonder. I mean, let's just look at QAnon.pub for a moment, just to see what it's saying. I've just got the BBC News. I'll use the BBC News page or the tab I'm using, because I want to get the truth. I want the truth to cover up the lie. So I'm going to use the same tab and put QAnon.pub over the BBC News. The latest Q drops are, there was one today. What's that? Yesterday, sorry. The Shield of Faith, which says, in addition to all this, take up the Shield of Faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Well, thanks, Q. I certainly will. Same day, what happens if CIA was actively involved in domestic targeting and surveillance of US persons? How does one agency attach itself to another? And the CIA is I'm not going to read all that. And there's the whole Brennan stuff, which Styx has dated. I haven't watched the video Styx made about that. Apparently it's another damn squib. Now that Russia collusion is proven lie, when do the trials for treason begin? And there we have the big lock 'em up things there. You see, there's Hillary, of course. There's Bill Clinton, Obama. There's John Podesta. There's Alexandria, occasionally Courteous, or whatever her name is. Yeah, well, that's what I hope it will be the case. Yeah. Oh, so who else is in the chat box? Let's have a look. Lime Spec says Biden or Steve Mumbling for president. Who would you choose then? Oh God, Steve Mumbling. Steve Mumbling, definitely. I mean, I can cope with a guy who drives along a road knocking over kangaroos and things like that. I mean, it's not ideal, but you know, he's better than Joe Biden. BitShoot says, "Is Russell starting up his Green Lives Matter movement?" He is. He hopes it'll go all over the galaxy. Longsight says, "What do you think about British establishment organisations being able to commit crimes with indemnity?" I think it's awful, Longsight. I think it's terrible, and it's a sign of the times. Just like the double standard has come out, but the good news is it's always been there. This has always been the case, but now everyone can see it, and that's really, really good. Diego Rivera says Bigfoot against Trump for draining the swamp. I don't know what Bigfoot thinks about this. Crafty Nice, Bungle for president. I've got Bungle behind me, haven't I, on my bed? Yes. He watches over me when I sleep. Make sure that Zippy and George don't get me. Max Organ, Ben is an Illuminati fluffer. Cosmic Clay, the future's bright, the future's orange. I like that. That's a good slogan. That's a good sort of like tongue-in-cheek slogan about Trump. Now it's 50 people watching again, so it's gone up again. But do you mind if I knock it on the head? It's 1 hour 41 minutes. Do you guys want to add anything else? I think I've covered everything for now. I could have gone into the QAnon stuff in more detail, but I think I might save that for another video because I'll be doing another live stream like this. Max August says Ben has to go for a poo. No, I don't. If I did, I'd just nip out for a few minutes and come back. But I think we covered everything, really. I mean, we've sort of covered everything. And I just want to say, like, if I don't want to... Paul Armstrong is off to watch The Phenomenon. Oh, that's a good idea. I'd like to do that too, Paul. Night, BitShoot. And Crafty says, before you go, Ben, what are your thoughts on disclosure? Crafty Nihilist wants me to break the 4 hour 5 minute barrier. And I tell you what, if I go into that, I'll break the 10-hour barrier. Nice one. All I can say, Crafty, is I'm going to get Steve Bassett back on the show. Night, Scenario. Sleep well. Night, Lime Specs. I'll keep your eye on my channel because there's more videos coming. I don't know when exactly, but I'm going to I'll do another of these live streams at some point. Hugo Rune is turned up at the end. Hello, Hugo. Poo in a few minutes, mine a half-hour jobbies. All right, well, Hugo, you'll have to take your laptop to the bog. You know, if you're one of these people, you have to like spend ages on it. I mean, in the old days, people used to read newspapers. Now they just take their mobile phone or something. But you can keep watching the show while you're on the bog. David Schultz says over 6,000 scientists signed an anti-lockdown petition. Yeah, that's good. Trump 2020, yay, 24, 28, 20. Yeah, definitely, Claire, definitely. Night, Hugo. And thanks for coming. And Jock of Ages. Max Organ and Hillary Spacey. Cheers, guys. David Schultz, take it easy. I hope to see you again soon. Yeah. Night, Diggler, Trump 2020. Thanks for joining. I'm going to call it a night now. I'll put the recording up, of course, and anyone who missed it, like Steve071, who was at work, you'll be able to see it. Night, Keith. Night. MAGA, Claire. MAGA, indeed. Trump 2020. It's going to be exciting, isn't it? That's one thing for certain. Yes, I will be coming back. Night, Kat. You're very welcome, Kat. And thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining us. There'll be a lot more to say. Thanks, David. And, yeah, it's not over yet by a long shot. It's going to be... one thing it's not going to be is boring. It's going to be exciting. Very exciting, no matter what happens. Make Tony Topping great again, says Max Organ. Night. 333 Kingdom. Yeah, good. Well, Tony Topping already is great. He doesn't need to be made great again. Okay, guys. I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you all for watching, and for those of you especially who posted in chat. See you again soon. Keep watching this channel.